My name is Chiara, and I'm a project officer for education research and pedagogy at European Schoolnet. And today here with me, I have several colleagues I'd like to introduce to you. I have Nicolas Tezos, who is also working at European Schoolnet on NBS Academy project with me. We have Diego Fernandez and Matilde Pinto, who are going to help us through the chat with any technical issues or by replying to some more practical questions, should you have any. So please do feel free to write in the chat if you need any assistance or have any questions. And we also have our three speakers here with us today, and I will introduce them in a moment. So moving on, I would like to say a couple of words about what we are going to go through today. So first, I will give you a brief introduction about the NBS Academy project and what's happening in the project and what has been happening so far. Then we will listen to our experts on how to bring NBS into continuous professional development programs. So we are glad to have here today with us Maria Vagor from the University of Nicosia in Cyprus, Maria Gallo from Trinity College Dublin, Ireland, and Evstatia Koitsanu from University of Thessaly, Greece. I'm sure all the participants can't wait to hear from you, so I will not take too much of your time. I will give you participants a really brief introduction, and then the floor will be yours. And then, of course, our well-anticipated question and answer sessions. We already have gathered a few questions from MOOC participants, but we welcome all participants today to share their questions in the chat. You can also share them while our speakers are talking. Don't worry, because we will gather them from the chat, and then I will make sure to pass them on at the end during the Q&A. So to start, I would like to say a couple of words about the NBS Academy project. NBS Academy is an Erasmus Teacher Academy, and it counts 9 partners and 13 associated partners, and it lasts for 3 years. The project aims at creating a European community of practice on NBS education, gathering and bringing together teachers, both in service and pre-service, and teacher trainers, as well as policymakers and NBS experts through collaborative learning communities aimed at mainstreaming NBS in teacher education, with the ultimate aim of improving teacher education on NBS and eventually improving NBS education as a whole. Now, what are the challenges that this project addresses? Why this project was born? Why is it needed? We have gathered a few here just to give you a bigger picture of what is the context about NBS teacher education at the moment. So this project is trying to address the fact that there is a lack of supportive communities for promoting and developing NBS in teacher education, which brings teachers to be sometimes lacking confidence or be not really convinced or not really confident in bringing this topic into their classrooms, whether they are just starting or they are long in service teachers. And this is also due to the fact that we are currently lacking specialized trainings on NBS and in some countries, unfortunately, also on sustainability. This is also due to the fact that teacher trainers themselves are still quite unfamiliar with NBS education, and this is due to a larger lack of policies, for example, in many countries to introduce NBS in teacher training. And another bigger issue that we have that we are trying to address in NBS Academy is that teachers lack opportunities to gather, to share experiences, to create synergies, to exchange their knowledge and their practices. And if you're here with us today, it means that you also want to change this, that you also want to meet with your peers and learn more about what's happening in NBS education across Europe and even beyond. So to address these challenges and even more, the project is working on several outputs. Some of them have already been produced and others are upcoming. And these outputs all work towards these specific objectives. So we aim at building the first network, mainstreaming NBS in teacher training, to develop a train-the-trainer program, to co-create 2 joint training courses, one for ITE and one for CPD, through living lab methodologies, to test these courses, and also to test them through 2 joint international mobility schemes, one physical and one digital using virtual reality, and developing a MOOC for NBS in teacher trainings, of which this webinar is a part. And finally, some policy recommendations to mainstream and support NBS into EU and national policy contexts. So why is this important? Well, because teachers shape the minds of the future. So we believe that teacher trainers, both from ITE and CPD contexts, have a great responsibility to make sure that educators worldwide are equipped with the right tools and feel confident enough to bring NBS into their classrooms so that their pupils will be encouraged to use nature as a solution for the big challenges of today and of tomorrow. And if you're interested to know more about what NBS Academy is doing, you can check the flyer that I've put here by clicking on the link from the slide, and also go to our website. You will find way more information that I'm giving to you right now in a very condensed way. And to conclude, I would just like to resume a bit what has been done so far, so that maybe you can find something that is of inspiration to you and explore it later on. We have produced the roadmap and network for the project. We have developed a competence-based educational framework, which is the pedagogical background, the basis of our courses that we have developed. We have developed the Train the Trainer program, which was delivered both online and through a physical bootcamp in last year. That gathered both IT and CPD trainers, as well as pre-service and in-service teachers. We launched Living Labs, thanks to which we co-created the IT and CPD courses. We will hear about them in a moment from our first speaker. And then we launched the MOOC that most of you will be familiar with by now. Once again, please feel free to explore more if you're interested, if you want to find more materials that you might use in your context by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link from the slide. And now I would like to pass the floor to Maria Evagor from the University of Nicosia. Thank you, Maria, for being here today with us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you, Chiara, and thank you for a great introduction into the NBS Academy project. In this part of the presentation, I will talk about ways and best practices to integrate nature-based solutions into CBD programs based on the experience that we had in the NBS Academy project. First, I want to start by talking a bit about the theory base, because at the beginning of the project, we thought about the theory base that we wanted to use as part of the project. And as part of the process, this thinking tool that you see here on your screens emerged. You can also find this on the project's website. And this thinking tool is connected with the green competence and the digi-competence frameworks created by the European Union. And they provide guidance to teachers as to how they can set up and they can start with the nature-based solutions lesson in their classroom. So for example, teachers can start by identifying where the risk is, and then they can go on by establishing understanding about and knowledge about the issue, define the challenge, look for the solution, design and test possible solutions, and then follow up and evaluate the outcome of the solutions. Of course, this is presented in a more or less linear way, but it's not intended to be linear because you can start from any one of those boxes that you see there. So this was the basis for us when we started with the nature-based solutions, and we were starting to understand how to go from nature-based solutions to nature-based solutions within the educational system. So this is how we started. And then the next step for us was the Living Labs. So in this project, we use the Living Labs methodology, which allows for the co-design and co-creation of the ideas, the materials, and the modules by interested stakeholders that were part of these Living Labs. So in our situation, we had one Living Lab in each partner country, leading to the design of one module per country and lesson plans on nature-based solutions. The participants of these Living Labs were teachers, teacher educators, and NBS stakeholders who provided input and feedback on the various stages of the creation of the module. And the main outcome were 6 modules and various lesson plans for different age groups. And I have a bigger, let me change this. So by scanning the QR code here, you can go directly into a Google Drive where you can download all the PowerPoint presentations, lesson plans, and worksheets and materials that we have created for the NBS course. And based on the interaction that we had in the Living Labs, the structure of the course is based on 6 different modules. The first one has to do with introduction to nature-based solutions. The second with designing and implementing NBS. The third one includes examples of NBS lesson plans that were designed by the Living Labs. The fourth has to do with addressing challenges and barriers. The fifth with future directions and innovations. And Evstathia is going to talk a bit about the work that was done there later on. And the 6 have to do with assessing the impact of NBS in education. So you can access all the materials and the lesson plans as well in English, and you can use them if you want with your students or with your teachers. Given the time limitations that we have, I will only focus on module 1 today and say just a bit about the module. So coming to the question of ways and practices to integrate nature-based solutions in professional development, the answer based on our experience is to start by introducing to in-service teachers the notion of NBS through discussion using prompt questions as the ones you can see here. For example, what do you understand by the term nature-based solutions? And can you think of an example that may fit the term nature-based solutions? Based on the implementations that we did with in-service teachers, this is a terminology they are not familiar with. So this is something that takes time for them. So we go from the general discussion of what they know about about nature-based solutions to activities in pairs in which the teachers explore pictures of different solutions. Some are nature-based solutions, some they're not. They have to talk about this and they have to explain why they think they're NBS or why they think they're not NBS, and discuss the questions that you see here. Like, for example, what are the societal challenges, who is affected, and what is the solution that is demonstrated here. Then we move to a bit of a theory, like an introduction of how we perceive nature-based solutions, and then they have to go through a case study analysis. So after they learn about the theoretical parts of NBS, they explore specific cases that are included within the materials that I have shared with you. They study these case studies in detail, and they try to identify also whether these case studies are applicable in their own local context, and they are guided by the questions that you see here in the worksheet. And then an important discussion that we added to our training as well had to do with how environmental education, how nature-based solutions education differs from environmental education. And this is a question that came up early in the discussion in the Living Labs. So this was a suggestion that we got from the experts, the stakeholders in the Living Labs, but it was a question that was really appreciated as well by the in-service teachers when we did the implementation during this summer. So we start with this question: what are the similarities? What are the differences? The teachers have to share their ideas and views, and they have to try and put in the Venn diagram their ideas. And then we also have our suggestion of the similarities and differences that, again, if they have the time, they can talk about. So what did we learn from implementing these materials with in-service teachers, listening to their voice? We learned that it's really important for them to understand how nature-based solutions education differs from environmental education, and they can do that by exploring the different NBS cases and understanding their characteristics, and also by trying to transform the NBS cases in examples that can be considered within the school environment. So how is this NBS case study appropriate for my school environment, and how could I turn it into a solution that can be implemented in my school? And then the second thing that we heard from the teachers is that it's really important to have input from the NBS experts and the teacher trainers, both during the design of the nature-based solution lessons, but also during the implementation, because they need support during the process of implementing the NBS project within their school. Here you can see some pictures from the implementations that took place in Volos during this summer. And this is where the teacher voices are coming from. And now I will pass the floor to Maria for the second part of this presentation.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. I'm very, just to say my thanks to the NBS Academy team for inviting me today to speak about this NBS CPD. As I explained to our colleagues before this started, I'm actually really in nature today. So you will hear lots of nature sounds behind me. I am currently in Canada on the short end of my vacation, and I'm delighted to be with you today. And so I'm going to really delve into getting inside and outside of looking at CPD of NBS, and we'll kind of go from there. So where are we going to be focusing on today? First, I'll tell you a little bit about me very quickly. Again, I'm Maria Gallo. I am a research fellow at the Trinity Business School in Dublin, Ireland. And I've spent about 12 years working at a teacher education college in Ireland, in the west coast of Ireland, where we, including both initial teacher education, ITE, and also CPD of teacher education, including being the director of a master's program in leadership and management for those that work in teacher education. So, and I kind of got the opportunity to work on the NBS EduWorld project, which is a complementary project, I would say, to NBS Academy. And we have developed as part of this, and EUN is one of our partners in this project that has just been completed. And we created 50 learning units as part of this project. And these learning units are Creative Commons, so anybody can access them on the website link that's there. And so I'm going to just kind of highlight how these might be well used in CPD for teachers. And I'm also going to just have you think a little bit about both inside and outside, a little bit about some other resources that might be of help. So let's start by getting inside. So what we want to be doing is, obviously, one of the things is, how do we create NBS curious teachers? That's what we want to do. Many teachers may not understand what NBS is. We are all, as they say, we are all the ones who understand this. So we need to show that it has relevance and interest to teachers. And how do we make it relevant? We have to think about ways that it connects directly to the curriculum, and how it can integrate into classroom activities and in a very demanding setting. As many of you know, a lot of teachers have many demands on them to have external content that is brought into the classroom. So we need to show the relevance of NBS as a way to bring hands-on practical education to students and to student teachers. So we want to be creating NBS teacher advocates, and that's going to be kind of our initial aim. So that's getting inside. So that's thinking about the inside of thinking about teaching. Now we want to get outside. So the idea is, how do we create and find NBS relevant content? And how do we bring the content to life outside? So this idea of getting our hands dirty. So where can we do that? How can we make sure that these become memorable experiences for those that are having a CPD experience? But also for those that are maybe in initial teacher education. So we need to be thinking about what that looks like for them so that they can translate that into finding really exciting opportunities for their own students. So it's kind of a cascade effect. And that's what we want to try to create. So it's about how we get our hands dirty and how we get creative. I love that an example that we have in the west of Ireland, where there was a local event called Dig Your Dinner in a local farm. And the idea is that you would literally go and you'd find out how you would, how you would go and find out, where your carrots and your potatoes and things like that, come right out of the ground, and actually pull them out yourself. And it's a really good teaching opportunity for teachers to go out and get their hands actually physically dirty, but also to think about two things: to think about how something like that could be really interesting as an example for students, but also thinking about how you could connect that to different kinds of, as a nature or a natural environment, how that could be related to NBS education, how it could be related to the natural environment, thinking about soil content, thinking about things that have that cascade to their own students. And what that really points to is the importance of understanding where NBS is already happening in your local context. So if you're a teacher or you're doing CPD, where is NBS already happening? So we're really fortunate in Europe that a lot of NBS activity is already happening in many of our local communities, including in local authorities. So how can we integrate and connect with those so we can find some relevant content that's already relevant locations for us to do our work? Now, and that's the idea of the experiential learning, and that's what we want to be creating. So creating that kind of EOC, education outside the classroom. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that idea. And how to prepare teachers to make that link between NBS and having education outside the classroom. So it's not just about having a field trip, but having a really intentional idea of picking a place to go and to do. Just going to go across here to the next slide. So one of the examples here is the In and Out Lab that we have created as part of one of the learning units of the NBS EduWorld. And so if you're thinking about creating, we all can understand how some of those STEAM subjects can be very difficult and challenging for some students. So the idea of how can we create an NBS topic that actually is familiar to students, and bringing a practical element. And that's the idea of connecting it to local community. So thinking about creatively, and this Otter project, which is another EU project that also has some really good resources for teacher education, to think about learning outside the classroom. And we can get creative. It doesn't have to be taking students very far, or even student teachers very far. And the importance of also co-creating with students. Once we give them the context of the natural environment of NBS that where NBS can occur, how can we create with students or student teachers on what those places might be? And how that links to NBS. So, thinking about, we don't have to just take them to a farm, but actually thinking about, well, on the way, can we stop at a local beach, or can we stop at, a local wetland and talk about what's happening there and the coastal erosion, etc. And that how maybe there are nature-based solutions that are happening in those contexts. Okay, we're going back inside again. And if we go inside, we need to be thinking about how to integrate NBS into ITE. I had the fortunate opportunity to work in the Irish context with Irish Aid, which is the Department of Foreign Affairs, to look at global citizenship education, GCE. Many might be familiar with that. And there is a lot of very important connections between GCE and possibly NBS. And why I bring this up as a highlight is because in order for us to really think about how we integrate some of this NBS work into ITE, into initial teacher education, and into CPD, we need to get it embedded in the curriculum. And that's where cleverly GCE has done that. So in many countries around Europe, GCE is already embedded in teacher education. So that's a great opportunity for NBS. So how can we either, piggyback on that that's already happening, or how can we look at ways to influence government and policymakers to think about how we can use NBS as a way to look at these big areas and to build those next NBS curious teachers. And that goes back to the idea too, NBS is a real springboard to talking about a lot of these sustainability questions, the greatest challenges that we're trying to face in the world. And as I mentioned, GCE has been integrated into initial teacher education curriculum, as has Education for Sustainable Development, ESD. So how can we now use that as a gateway to bring NBS into initial teacher education? And the idea is we need to generate some interest around NBS so that they can, and educate people on it so that they do understand how this can be integrated. Okay, we're going outside again. And so when we think about inspiring experiential learning, there are these kind of questions that we can think about. And I already mentioned about the idea of, of realizing outdoor CPD, but also creating memorable experiences for students. How can we become those NBS trailblazers? And that's what we want to try to do, is the more memorable experiences, the more likely it's going to be embedded as part of a teacher's identity, so that when they go out, they say, oh, I had this great NBS experience where we went out to a beach and we saw, coastal erosion and how it was being rectified with local authority work, etc., and really practical hands-on areas. It becomes memorable, and therefore it becomes part of their teacher identity to become an NBS trailblazer. And how we can create those communities of practice, as was mentioned earlier, and who knows about this kind of CPD. So, this is just giving a quick snapshot. I won't dwell on this for very long because I only have about a minute left. But it's just, there is a sample from one of the learning units, Learning Unit 19, where it talks about an in and out lab. And it talks a little bit about the process of actually building using design thinking. So how you would create this kind of in and out lab for those that work in teacher education. So it talks about those 5 steps, you're preparing, you orientate, discover, act, and then say it loud. So the idea is that you're creating this process of co-creation around developing an NBS intervention. Get to the next slide here. Oh, sorry, I missed a slide. And all the reason to do this is creating a renaissance of interest in natural spaces for learning. And there is a reference there on that idea of renaissance of interest of natural spaces. So I've just included on the reference page. And I think that's where we want to go. We want to get people excited about being outside and bringing NBS education into the ITE and the CPD landscape for our teachers and those future educators that are going to be having that cascade on the pupils of the future. So there are the references, and I understand this will all be shared. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will pass it on now to Sophia. Go on ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everybody. My name is Sophia, and I represent the University of Thessaly from Greece. And continues to what Maria said. She talked about how we go outside to nature to learn about nature and nature-based solutions. We are going to discuss today how technology can support the primate knowledge of learning some nature processes and further helping teachers understand in depth to further go outside and explain and be a part of NBS education. So today we are going to explore how technology can be a powerful bridge to understanding nature through education. And we will also explore how supporting our teachers in this journey can lead to their success and their continuous professional development. So as mentioned before, we are also partners of the NBS Academy project. And we developed Module 5, which was a module about future directions and innovations in NBS education. Through our work in Module 5, we came in close contact with a lot of teachers, teacher trainers, and a lot of students. And some questions arose between the teachers of how, of course, what is NBS education? Because it's a very new term for Greek teachers. But other than that, a lot of questions arose on how we can manage to ask teachers to understand nature-based solutions, and as maybe we are not able to go outside all the time and participate in actual environmental environments, how we can come closer to nature through technology. So we had a lot of discussions, and some key points arose during our work in Module 5 about how technology can help teachers in that aspect. So some of the main learning outcomes that derived from our work was how teachers can identify and analyze innovative and best practices that can effectively integrate into education, explore emerging trends in technologies that they can use to further support their own knowledge about NBS education and further contribute to their teaching, develop strategies for implementing NBS in schools, taking into account relevant educational policies and institutional supports, understand the role of policy and advocacy in shaping educational context that promotes NBS education, and design and implement experiential activities that integrate NBS principles into the learning process. So, so the first thing we came to understand is why nature needs to meet technology in some aspect, because as some of you know, teaching NBS education, teaching NBS and teaching natural processes can be a bit complex when it is taught inside the classroom. So teaching NBS, it could be quite tough and a complex knowledge that is often difficult to acquire and requires a lot of in-depth knowledge. So we understand that in order to keep the students also interested and engaged in the teachers' confidence in teaching, we should approach NBS education through a new scope. This new scope can be technology, which we understand a lot of teachers might sometimes not feel very confident into approaching. But as you know, education and teaching is always ever changing. And of course, the times are also changing, and technology is also already integrated into our teachings. We thought that technology is a way to further support NBS teaching and help, of course, teachers first and foremost, and then students. So why we need a new approach to NBS education? Of course, technology offers us a lens to make the invisible visible in terms of natural processes, and by using technology to understand nature, we should realize that it's not replacing nature and going out into nature, but rather than replacing, is technology is a tool to help us deepening our knowledge and connection through data and through the interaction with data and information. So, So technology can act as a lens to allow us to see and measure and interact with nature in entirely new ways, and coming to learn nature in a deeper level. So, because as you can also understand as teachers, it is important that we gain first and foremost a deep knowledge. And after that, when we have this knowledge and we have accepted it, it would be easier for us to further show it to our students. And of course, technology can bridge the gap into translated data into an experience and observation into action. And we can use a lot of tools that captivate students, which are now bombarded with a lot of different information. So we can use technology into an advantage for our studies. Yeah, how tech integrates into NBS learning. Of course, some teachers are not able to always go outside to excursions and come in contact with nature, as a lot of teachers work in areas in big cities and are not very close to nature. So some teachers can use virtual field trips to further explore nature-based solutions, to further go to places that otherwise will not be able to go, and have their students together with them to explore, for example, the Amazon forest and the rainforest, and how maybe rain affects the growth of the trees and the animals living into the forest, or maybe witnessing deforestation and how this also affects the local communities. So as you can see, technology can help in that aspect. Also, by using augmented reality, for example, you can use the Merge Cube app to hold a virtual river ecosystem where different species live, and you can see how changes in the weather and maybe raindrop can affect the lives of the creatures living there. And other tools like iJack Creator to make posters of local birds that you can find maybe into your school. You can make these posters to come alive into video content, which can also be very fun for the students. And another important aspect of technology and how it can be implemented into teaching, and of course helping teachers improve not only their skills but their skills of their students, is citizen science, which of course, as the word says, brings together science and active citizenship through maybe some apps or face-to-face meetings where people can contribute online to some global databases, information about local animals, local plants, and not only that, but through citizen science, a lot of students and teachers can also feel like active participants. And this is very important because this is another way of connecting to the world and understand how our actions affect others and, of course, nature. So, of course, the technology can also help into visualizing some processes in nature. And as we had discussions with some teachers, they also, for example, we had one teacher that she gathers water in her school and provides water for her garden into her school, where students go and interact with the plants. Teachers can also gather some local plants and create their own salads. So she is using technology to learn about how much water gathers every year and how much water is needed for her garden into the school. And of course, in a more in a way that's it's a bit more complex. A lot of teachers and some teachers that are more knowledgeable on that aspect, they can also use some software like GIS or Climate Collab or Clear Visualizer to model the impact of planting trees, for example, into their school, or how this planting can also impact the climate around their school or in their city. So as you can understand, benefits for the students are a lot because from the first point, something abstract becomes concrete and students can understand how nature works and why nature works this way. So they can further and deepen their knowledge and understand and get to love nature for what it is and for what it provides to their environment. So yeah, this is one aspect of technology. Of course, by using technology, you also acquire a lot of other skills, digital skills, as we like to say. Students can learn to do data analysis, of course, on a higher level. But apart from that, they can develop critical thinking, which is very important, and also collaborative problem solving, which is the most important thing. Students getting to collaborate with one another, respect one another, and understand through collaboration. And it also gives agency and empowerment to the students, but not only to the students, but also the teachers, because they feel they contribute to the real world science, for example, citizen science, and they can see that their actions matter on a more holistic level. And of course, you can also create connection, not only from face-to-face, but also by being part of online communities. So everything that I said to now is very nice, and it will be the most optimistic aspect. But of course, sometimes this can mean that teachers are we create more trouble and more problems for the teachers. So how we can support the teachers? We understand that if a teacher doesn't have the digital tools to understand technology, they can fear tech failure, as we say. So it is important to understand and help them in that aspect, to not fear technology. Of course, it is needed that teachers, as part of this environment, they're also needed to continue their professional development beyond the theoretical practice, and pedagogical tech integration is a very important aspect to that. Our goal is to build teacher confidence and competence, turning anxiety into excitement. And the last point is that we are to focus, the focus must be shift to empowering teachers for continuous practical and relevant training. So at the end, how tech-driven CPD can work. Teachers, as they can in their own time and when they feel like it, and if they deem important, they can participate into MOOCs that are short trainings for 3 to 10 minutes that are very focused, and they can also create their own learning path. So they can learn in that aspect and further help themselves in their professional development. of course, teachers, now that we have a lot of social media, they can create professional learning communities in which they can participate and exchange ideas, lesson plans, or maybe have their questions answered, and so they can come in contact with teachers all over the world. They can also participate in virtual workshops or webinars, such as this one. So technology can also bring teachers together. And as the last call to action, it is important not only to have teachers as the main it is also important to bring into the discussion other aspects of education. For example, school leaders, who they have to dedicate time and resources to peer-to-peer tech coaching, not just buying hardware and after that doing nothing with that. So it's important from inside the school to have dedicated seminars so teachers can acquire digital skills and, of course, green skills. For policymakers to fund grants and combine NBS curriculum development with digital pedagogy training. And of course, for all of us, not only teachers, but citizens, to advocate for and contribute to open access repositories of tech-integrated NBS lesson plans, where everyone has access to free education and educational material wherever they are. So this was all from me. Thank you very much. And back to Kara.
Thank you, Satya. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the speakers for your great presentations. Honestly, super interesting, so many things to discuss. I'm sure our attendees agree. Also, we have quite a few questions that have been shared in the chat, and I've been trying to gather them, group them all together. We have one that I would for sure like to ask you because it's been shared a lot. It's something that I've read already from the comments of participants of the MOOC through the MOOC platform, and now it has been re-proposed here in the chat. So I will pass it on to the speakers, and whoever feels like replying is welcome to. So our participants have a concern about schools or learning context in general with limited resources. So how can integrating NBS into CPD be of help for teachers who are teaching in conditions that are not the best? For example, not a lot of funding, not a lot of possibilities to go outdoors or use technology. So basically with some constraints of any sorts. Does anyone have any insight or suggestions, tips about that? Please
I'm
go
happy
ahead.
to start, Chiara. Just to say, for a very long time, I was working in a very rural community with lots of disadvantaged schools in the west of Ireland. And so one of the things we would have encouraged our student teachers to do was to actually start to know their community leaders and to kind of start to integrate in the community to find out what's happening, what might be really on the doorstep of the school or actually in the school itself. So there are a lot of schools that have different kinds of options that they have that are connected or could be connected to NBS. So it's really just about getting creative about doing things that are with limited resources. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of local authorities, even in rural communities or in communities maybe that have limited resources. So lots of maybe local councils or urban councils or rural councils that are starting to integrate NBS. So there could be a way of doing almost like a tour of that kind of work and having a discussion and maybe involving some city or county planners in providing that kind of tour for teachers as part of a CPD. And that doesn't cost any money, and it may just require, some time, maybe school time, but maybe just to go and actually do some kind of tour. So just thinking of maybe practical, solutions that don't cost a lot of money and that are nearby.
That's great. Thanks, Maria. Yes.
If I can also add, you can find some examples that you can easily implement in your schools in the lesson plans that we have in Module 3 in the NBS Academy lesson plans. And we shared one example last week for those who were here last week as well. So you can start, for example, by, it's the urban heat phenomenon. So you can start by measuring the temperature within the schoolyard, within the school environment. And then the students can collect data about the different temperatures in the different surface areas within the school, and then they can talk and make decisions about possible solutions. And at the point where they have to implement the solutions, and that's where they're going to need resources, then they can do a community fundraise or a fundraise with their parents within the school. So in this way, you can also involve the community, which is really important when it comes to nature-based solution education.
Thank you so much, Maria. Could I ask you to share in the chat the link to the IT and CPD courses, please? Because they were in the slides before, but it's nice to put them there again. I see that we have other questions about sharing materials, for example, to enhance NBS education with technology, whether it is VR or AR. So I invite the speakers, because we don't have so much time left, to share anything they might have in mind right now through the chat. And I'm sure our participants will find it very, very useful. And I thank you very much for all your insights. I think there would be so much to still discuss or answer, but we've covered a lot. So really, it was very insightful. I will take this last few minutes to give you a few tips on also how to stay connected to the NBS education community and where to go from now. So for those of you who are not part of the MOOC, I would like to remind you that the MOOC is still ongoing, and it will be until the 15th of October. So you still have time to enroll, to complete all the modules, and to submit the final assignment and receive your certificate at the end. Also, this MOOC had two live events already. The webinar of last week about initial teacher education, and today's MOOC about continuous professional development. But it will also have a Teach Meet. So next week, it will be the opportunities for participants of the MOOC to gather and share their own experiences, and finally meet each other, I would also say. Yeah, it would be a great opportunity. We usually have a great satisfaction rate after these meetings. So this is really about creating the connections that we've been talking about so far. You still have time to register as a speaker if you would like until tomorrow. Otherwise, you can always participate as an attendee and listen to other MOOC participants' experiences and ask your questions just like today. Later on, during the STEM Discovery Campaign 2026, I am sure that some of you are already part of our Scientix community, so already know about the Scientix STEM Discovery Campaign. For those of you who don't know, this is a yearly campaign that runs from February to April on our Scientix platform. And this campaign celebrates and promotes STEM education, and it is an opportunity for teachers to share their activities with educators worldwide. So whatever you are working on and it's connected to STEM education, keep it and don't forget it, and make sure you will share it through the campaign. And this includes, of course, the outputs of the MOOC. So the work that you will be doing through the NBS Academy MOOC will be also eligible for the STEM Discovery Campaign. You will find a beautiful map where you can pin all your activities. And of course, your work in the NBS Academy MOOC can go there. And there will be also awards connected to the NBS Academy project. So we strongly encourage you to put your work to this into action actually, and to gather also inspiration from other educators' work by checking the map of the STEM Discovery Campaign. I've left you the link in the slide, but we also shared it in the chat, so you can have a look and keep it in mind for the future. And last but not least, for those of you who haven't signed, I will still ask you to do it. And one more thing I would like to share with you. Okay, I think, Maria, you shared it already. Perfect. I wanted to share the link to the modules, and I just lost the message in the chat. So that's great. So thank you very much for joining us. We wait for you in the MOOC. It's a pleasure to see so many people showing up for our events. It means really you want to learn more about NBS. We said it's a growing field. There are challenges. There are also many opportunities. So we really encourage you to join us. You will get so many activities, tools, resources, practical examples that you've been asking for, which are the most important for you as teachers and teacher trainers. You will get to develop your own NBS learning scenario for teacher training, for ITE and for CPD. You will engage in process-oriented assessment and peer assessment. And finally, we hope to allow you to gain more confidence in NBS education and teacher training. And you will also, again, get the amazing chance to connect with a community of teachers and teacher trainers interested in developing and advancing NBS education and teacher education across Europe and beyond. As we have seen today, that we have so many people joining us from everywhere. So once again, I would like to thank you very much, to thank our speakers for being here with us today and sharing so many interesting opportunities and resources for our attendees to bring into their work. And I hope to see you soon in the next initiatives and events by the NBS Academy project and Scientix. And I wish you a great evening.